Hello, and welcome back to another week of DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar, Hoke here with Tom Jacobs. Tom, how are we doing today?
I'm better. It's weird that we kind of broke that second place stretch with a not so second place, which was a shame. It wasn't the way we wanted to do it. But it's good. A little bit disappointed in my selections last week, but it happens. We're on a good run, and we can go straight back to it in Denmark this week.
Yeah, I tried not to think about the 4 or 5 footers that Antoine Rosner missed all of Sunday that would have gotten him into a playoff, or the 3 pars and the par 5s that all kind of went away. As I thought Thriston or Wallace would have taken it deeper to like 19, 20, 21. The fact that they both stumbled in. But Thriston, to me, I actually spent the weekend with Axis. We were together on a little holiday, a little bachelor party, and we basically kind of talked a little about Thriston, how he had been on him for a good amount of time. And it made sense because he arguably, Tom Kim did so well in that stretch, but I think Thriston's Scottish, or I guess Irish, Scottish, and Open Championship were all very, very impressive. And it's hard to not keep up with somebody. I think he missed his next cut, and then this was after flashing again the next event and then would win. It wasn't really a surprise in that manner. The number was short, it wasn't something that was out of anywhere, but he has had a heck of a year. I think he is deserving of President's Cup discussion, especially if things continue to roll out this week. So definitely interested.
Yeah, it just depends, right, who isn't on that team and what implications there are from that. I get the sense that potentially that will all be sorted after the President's Cup, but I don't know yet. So yeah, I think he's got to be someone that's in the conversation. I guess maybe doesn't get as much attention as you would hope because it's a secondary tour, right, at the end of the day. And he's been kind of frittering between this and South Africa as well. So I don't know. He's been really impressive, and he showed great stuff. Like to hold off Wallace, who's obviously, one of the better winners in that field, is no small feat itself.
Yeah, what could have been crazy is we could have seen back-to-back weeks of somebody just not having any ball striking. Wallace was first and around the green, first in putting.
Yeah,
loses in a playoff. To have the back-to-back weeks that could have been that way is quite unreal. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk also at the Tour Championship and incredible performance by Rory McIlroy. I don't know if I want to classify what Sheffield did as a meltdown, but it wasn't. He all but gave it away after having that huge lead Sunday morning. But
yeah, I think you probably have to call it that, right? And it's horrible too because it we saw that video at the end with Rory saying that he was kind of upset because Scotty deserved it all year, and I think that's him being a little bit humble, but. The way that kind of leaderboard, shook out all week, really. You saw some guys finish inside the top 10, like Sepp Straka, who, once he was in that position, kind of kept hold of it. And, Max Homa, was he like top 5, I think, in the Tour Championship and in the FedEx Cup money. So, there was some pretty interesting storylines that developed from it. When he had that massive lead on Sunday, it felt like, oh yeah, the format doesn't work again. And then all of a sudden, Rory comes and does that, and you're like, well, does it work? Like, is it an okay format? I still don't really like it, but it caused a lot more entertainment than people expected, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think the format probably got absolutely bailed out by its best case scenario. Yeah. And that shouldn't get rid of the conversation of what it is. I think I've talked about it before the Shotgun Start, but the Fried Egg podcast that Andy Johnson and Joe, what is Joe's last name? Let's see. I just want to make sure I have Joe's last name 100% right. But they've had some very, very good discussions. Joseph Lamagna. They have some good discussion on the Fried Egg that I am very in line with, and they talk a lot about the playoff structure. It's just it should be They make a joke about the Super Bowl, Rory does as he walks in there, the FedEx Cup Super Bowl. But every other sport, it's the biggest thing of the year. You know what I mean? The last game is the biggest game of the year. And it felt like a joke to a lot of us. And, of course, all of it turned out to be incredible yesterday. But I think there's just so much discussion you can have regarding the evolution of what needs to happen.
And I think a lot of people said at the start of the week, I think we kind of did in our show and stuff that, like, it felt pretty scripted that that Rory would just go and win, right? Like after the season that he's had. What do we make of his comments of, I don't know if you kind of heard them or not, that he was just so pleased that he can prove still that when he's at his best, he can beat anybody. And then he kind of said, like, well, I took down the world number one in Brooks Koepka in 2019. I took down the world number one in Scotty Scheffler this year. And it's like, well, they kind of had to do things wrong. Like, I know he played well, and you can't take that away from him, but like, it was like, look, you probably don't. What I think the really curious case of Rory McIlroy is like, yes, I think those things are true, but it probably doesn't happen enough. Like, I know he's been brilliant, like top 8 in all the majors this year, but he only really had a chance to win one of them when it came to it. He didn't, and that always concerns me. I feel like we could still look back at Rory McIlroy's career and just go like, what if? Which is a horrible thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, to be most FedEx Cup titles of anybody ever, and to not have a major in 8 years is just like it's quite odd, and it's the other, like, I would say the 2 wins he had were, I guess, the 2 recent wins he had. So Canadian Open and this were like when max pressure was on, or at least max controversy was happening in regards to LIV, which is like awesome. That's an incredible step up to the plate moment. In no disrespect, a really big moment. Like Canadian Open's a big win. That's a really big win. And that to me, it's just hard to separate. But like the fact that, you don't win the Open Championship in that setting this year, that's also very difficult. You don't capitalize on a first round lead in the PGA Championship. Like there's a lot of meat on the bone that could have been there and probably needs to be there.
I think it's one of those things, like, I've always kind of held the lack of major wins over the last kind of 8 years against him. When you look at, I mean, he's obviously not the popular guy that he was, but you look at Phil Mickelson, who's had a wonderful career, and the fact that he won, like, is it 5 majors he's won? 6? Is it 5 or 6? I think it is. Like, maybe we shouldn't be defining them just by major victories. I kind of had this discussion on the Lost Words podcast quite a long time ago, that like, it probably shouldn't be. We kind of, I think me and Charlie Ford did it. We kind of went back and forth on who was right on it, and then at the end we both kind of agreed with each other. So I don't think there is a defining aspect. I think it's hard to be the best without having multiple wins. But again, you think about the extraordinary career that Greg Norman had. As much as people don't like him and that sort of stuff, like, he was a brilliant golfer. But the lack of major victories is always going to haunt him.
Yeah, man. I'm in the middle of reading Phil's biography by Shipnuck, and he just won his first Masters, and then that same year he top 5 or top 10 at least all the rest of the majors, and it just felt like it still wasn't even, to the degree. And I don't know. I think it's okay to hold majors to what it is, and that just separates a kind of player when all chips are on the table. And I mean, a lot of conversations can be had about the adjustment of the FedEx playoffs, and then does that crown the best champion or the right champion, and if they switch to match play and all this stuff. Like, it's at the end of the day, like, when you get in, I don't know, man, we could probably spend hours and hours.
It's just I think the defining thing is, like, how often is a major won each time by the world's best player at the time. Like, I feel like it doesn't happen as often as we think. Like, then that's not disrespectful to the people that have won majors recently, but like, yes, they might have been people that played well in majors recently, but it doesn't tend to be the long-standing best player in the world that wins, apart from when Tiger was doing it. So I think there's something to be said about. I just thought it was weird. I just thought it come across kind of like, I think it's confidence, but it came across as an arrogance, which is a negative. So tough. I mean, I think I always hold Rory to a higher standard than I do others, which is a positive in the sense that you think, that you can do that to him, but obviously a negative that you then kind of make horrible comparisons for him. So we'll leave that for a Rory McIlroy-esque postcard, shall we, and then go into the maiden Himmerland.
Yeah. Now we get to see Rory 3 out of the next 4 events over here overseas. So before they get to kind of the big boys, we have Wentworth coming up. We have the Alfred Dunhill coming up. We're at the Italian Open in between, the Ryder Cup venue. But we're first making a stop at Made in Himmerland. We're going to be in Denmark this week. We've seen this course twice over the last 3 years, both times won by Bernd Wiesberger, one time over Robert McIntyre when he pumped at OB on 17 or 18, gave himself a good chance there. And the last time we saw it, Bernd ran away from the field after Guido did his best on Sunday to find himself in the mix. But decent field, I would say, coming into the stretch here. I'm always a huge fan of this event. I was talking with Bear Off, our friend, this morning, and he brought out his article that he'd written in 2017 when there was first DraftKings salaries. And it talked about the fans here. It talked about the amphitheater that they have on the par 3. It is one of the more well-supported DP World Tour events by fans, and they get a lot of Danes into the field. And it seems that they genuinely care and want to represent. And I feel that way almost a little bit more, about all of the DP World Tour players when they get to represent their home country in the events. It matters more than from a state perspective, it seems, on the PGA Tour side. So definitely excited for the week here. Any thoughts specifically on profiles of the course itself?
So I think I was kind of reading some kind of stuff. Steve Rawlings, it does Betfair. He kind of put a reminder there that there's been some correlation with the Austrian Open, Diamond Country Club, which is an interesting fact. So it's only it's a resort-esque course, so it's kind of only defence is if it gets kind of windy. It's fairly open. It's going to attract those guys that can hit it far and take control of their wedges and putts. And I think, you mentioned right off the top about Wallace, all being short game, driven. And, that was the same with Kiefer when we lost from Gavin Green. And I think that could be, third week in a row that could happen. Like, it could just come down to the short stick. So I don't know if we'll ever get the best ball striker record, like the approach player rewarded here, but maybe off the tee and putting could be a big focus.
Yeah, I just think, for me, when I'll target specifically on a guy that I think could do it here. I mean, the distance, it's definitely quite short, 6,700 yards, 6,750, something like that, where we have seen. But, I mean, definitely if you look at guys that have won, they have been, or I guess in the mix, have been some of the best ball strikers of the mix.
Yeah.
To your point, Wallace did win here during his stretch run in 18. But
so Wallace was different course.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He won this event in 18.
Yeah.
It was Surrey who had won here the year before. And Surrey's another one who was one of the better ball strikers, during that stretch run. So, I think there's different ways to attack the course. And if we dig into kind of the odds board from the top there, we have the favorites, Wallace coming off of a week being the lead around the green and strokes gained to putting, then being the favorite into this week. And then Thriston Lawrence being the clear 1-2, almost the 1-2-3 of last week. I don't know if Mansell ended up fourth or third, but the 1-2-3 carryover. He's 30. Yeah, so 1-2-3 from last week. Mansell and then McIntyre, Arnaus, the clear 3 on the top of the odds board. We also have large prizes for DraftKings this week. So $20,000 to first place. Already messaging DraftKings Assist about pumping Wentworth for next week too, because we have a little competition, not little, but Liv does have a tournament this week where DraftKings is offering $100,000 to first place in those contests. So hopefully we can get similar to that for Wentworth, even though the competition is NFL next week. But either way, I'm super happy with $20K for first place. So I guess of the top of the board, I don't think either of us are betting any of these guys, but DraftKings wise, you have a preference?
So I was very close to Matt Wallace, and I actually thought the odds weren't too bad on him. Like, I know he's the favourite, and we don't tend to go there, but 22-1, he was the best price over here, and I actually thought he'd be shorter than that. When I factored in the fact that it wasn't driven by ball striking, I was a little bit concerned. But you could argue that if his short game's in great shape and he's the type that can just get hot with his irons at any point, then that's great. So I think my advice would be, if you do like Matt Wallace, to continue with that. In terms of the top of the board, probably Richard Mansell, I think, is the most reliable, I would say. I think there's definitely more winning upside from some of the others around the top of the board if they get there within the hunt. But I think the one that you kind of look at 9-6 in DraftKings and 28-25-1 in the betting board, like Richard Mansell, it was difficult for me to leave him out, I think.
Yeah, it's just such a great bunch of golf by him. And It's almost kind of similar with him and Rosner both. Like the fact that they are playing as well as they are with their ball striking, and I mean Mansel's been very close. Rosner's also been close. Tough to not get over the line after they've hit it so well. But yeah, I think a great way to attack Mansell then would be getting to him in DraftKings, and then I guess I don't really hate going back to Lawrence. I mean, he's the highest priced golfer, but again, if you think about that stretch that he has put together, I think it just continues and it makes a lot of sense. I think he's very deserving to be priced where he is. Another golfer, of course. I mean, all these guys, I have a tough time saying any to them, but Manzo, from a price perspective to the odds, I agree, seems the safest. My first selection from a betting perspective comes just below here. I think 33s is the best number that was this morning on him. It's Eddie Pepperell. And I do think this is a course, personally, that the irons weigh significantly more than the off the tee. Not that you can't do well off the tee and it correlates, but like the distance one, the openness two, like it hasn't been as propelling to victory off the tee. And what Eddie has done, and to get priced where he is now versus where we were interested in him a few weeks ago, that was the beginning of the run. He's now produced 5 consecutive top 10 strokes gained approach tournaments. That is quite the feat. Or I guess four straight, because he's gone 11th, 2nd, 20th, and 8th his last 4 events. And his strength is he's pretty accurate off the tee. He's just very, very short. I don't think that will get overpowered from an off the tee type of perspective. And those irons are just continue to be lights out. So if somebody can put the consistency like that right now and on the DP World Tour, I'm going back to the well there. So that to me, I think Eddie at 33, and if he keeps up that iron game, which now it seems to turn a corner, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, he's played here, I think, 4 times. I think his best finish was a 4th place finish back in the day as well. So that great sign. I think Eddie's playing well enough that, like, no matter what's really required of him, he should do really well. Look, to clarify my other point of maybe it's not the best iron player, I think that's just always important, right? And it's you're right. You're right to kind of circle back to that and say that is key. I just think it's going to be a case of the putt is going to make a massive difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to score. You have to score here.
I think is there 2 short par 5s that are here as well. I think so. You've got a chance to kind of make eagles. You got a 472-yard par 5 on the front. It might just be the one short par 5 actually.
I think it is because the other one's 645.
Yeah.
So I guess one really short that should be reachable by all. 645. I don't know if it's reachable by. I mean, maybe man.
And then you got the 558 as well. So there's a couple that you can kind of attack, and one that you should be taking advantage of. And then you've got a couple of shorter par 4s, if you like, 342 yards, 337, 338. Like they're not long par 4s, right? 269 on 14. So there is a lot of kind of holes that you can attack. Does that work in Pepperell's favour? I think the way he's hit the ball, it probably does. I think the Pepperell of old, it probably hadn't, because I didn't think he was as aggressive as he normally was, but I saw a little bit of that from him recently. So I do like that. I think that's just why it plays into someone like Mansell's hands, because I think that like the volatility of what he's doing at the moment is great, and he can just get hot with it. If he gets hot down the stretch on those shorter holes and the par 5s and stuff, like that could be really rewarding. And again, to talk about Mansell, like, I was really impressed he actually shot 66, 67 over the weekend. It didn't feel like he had the easiest chance considering what Lawrence was doing, and maybe that helped. But ultimately he only finished 2 shots like short, and he made a couple of bogeys, but Lawrence made a double and a bogey on the final day. So it's not like there were mistakes to be had out there. Wallace went bogey free, which probably says more about him than the others, I guess.
Yeah, until the playoff. That's funny. You lead around the green in strokes gained putting all week, and then you 3-putt the last hole. I think I think Eddie's also 9,100 on DraftKings. I think starting Mansell him that feels huge. pretty strong for me from a golfers that you can really kind of just see a lot of consistency out.
And it does feel like a course form type course. Like if some people do seem to go back to the world, like Bradley Dredge has been runner up here a couple of times. David Horsey's won and been runner up. As you said earlier, Bernd Wiesberger's gone back to back. So I do think it's a course that if someone's shown something in the past and they're showing any sort of life, probably worth a look this week.
Yep. I know you go a good bit down the board. I guess not a good bit, but decent bit down the board before starting. Other golfers that are in the 9Ks, again, Rasmus Højgaard's up here, Connor Seen, Justin Harding, Alexander Bjork are the other golfers 9K and above. I guess Seen would probably be the one for me. I mean, you look at, second, his last 2 times out. Tee to green game is exceptional, $9,400, feels very fair. Those would probably be, for me, definitely the 3 that I think stand out in the 9Ks, and even I put them side by side with the guys in the 10Ks when it comes to saving a little bit of dollars. Is there anybody else that you feel is warranted of discussion?
I think it was Seen for me. I just found it hard to leave him out, but I need winning upside from him at the prices now, and different in fancy, I guess. You can play him in Mansell, you can play him in Pepperell. So, you're always going to see, I think, someone like a Harding or a Larafabelle just do something kind of the 8, 9, and 9K border. But I don't think there's anything to point to them doing it, and you've just kind of got to, if it happens, it happens type thing.
Yeah, 100% for it. I think, so your first selection, let's go next over there. I guess from an odds perspective, which one? The state's a little bit different. Let's see. Both of them should be. No, let's talk about why we are both on a Dane together. Marcus, I'll pass it over to you. I think I got it down now.
It's
Helligkilde.
Yeah, I say it's Helligkilde, right? It's not Helligkilde anymore. We've got to the point in his career where
we're ready. It's been a year now.
Exactly, right? We're respectful of him now. So he's finished 5th twice on this golf course in the Nordic Golf League, and then last year he kind of stepped up into this realm. And you always wonder if they can make use of the fact they've played well here in the past on a completely different level, right? And he finished 25th. He closed with a Sunday 64. Since then, he's a 3-time winner on Challenge Tour. It's amazing to think that just a year apart or whatever, it might be a different place in the schedule this time, but a year and a bit apart. Since finishing 25th here, that he's kind of had those 3 wins. 29th and 4th, his last 2 events. He was 8th and 13th not too long ago in America as well, in those co-sanctioned events. And he's been 5th and 29th his last 2 starts, tee to green, and 8th and 25th in approach. So we're looking at a guy who has got a really high ceiling, I think. Could be one of these guys that we start seeing in the 25, 28, 22 range in the odds boards, I think, pretty soon. It's been someone I wanted to try and get on board with a couple of events in a row now, and this is just the one because I think it's a perfect storm, really. He's playing back at home, and that comes with added pressure, but when you're playing well, I think you kind of take that on.
Yeah, I'm actually rather sure he won the event they had here, when they were building up from COVID. Because Mike Miller has him with a win at this course in the past. The same year he finished 5th. So I think they did an event here, a all Danish event before kicking things off, where he's had success here. But so one additional point that I was thinking about with him when I was on the fence, I was actually debating between him and the golfer that you are also on, is he had enough points to be in Korn Ferry Tour finals.
Yeah.
He also had top 10'd an event and didn't play the next week afterwards when he could have easily been in the field. He chose not to pursue Korn Ferry Tour finals with no explanation. So my explanation of it is it's tough to only play 2 of these events or 1 of these events. You have to have a full commitment to the KFT finals, in my opinion, if you want to give it a shot and you want to pursue the PGA Tour. He's clearly good enough in that type of field. I mean, he finished top 20 in both of those events, top 13, I believe, in both of those events.
Yep.
But this is one of the stronger events, in my opinion, of Danish golfers playing well and stepping up. And I think he didn't want to miss this. I think it matters a lot to him to play in this. He's basically safe with a card next year. He's inside the top 100. I highly doubt if he missed those 3 events, he would have not had a card. I really don't think that was a jeopardy at all. Now, he's not in the Wentworth field. He's the 2nd or 3rd alternate as of now, which can be a separate discussion after their field was released. But so there's some pressure to probably get into the BMW PGA, but also I think he just really, really is motivated to tee it up in his home country and is willing to skip KFT finals and play this instead.
I think you're right. I think it's the home factor of playing his home open is, highly motivating to do that. I think for certain individuals, I think you make a really good point about Wentworth. Like, that is the event of the full season for the DP World Tour. And I guess, what does he need to do to get it? Can he get in with a top 10 this week, or does he need to actually win?
So as of now, he is, let me see. There was a cut line somewhere.
But while you're saying that, like, I think the motivation to me is that, like, if he can get himself into that BMW PGA and parlay it into, the Dunhill Links and things like that, like, he can get a really good strong run of events here. And I think he believes in himself to have that opportunity to play on the PGA Tour from good performances on this tour, rather than trying to go to Conferry Tour finals, which might actually make more financial sense, might actually make more sponsorship sense, etc. The difficulty of trying to play on both tours has not been missed by, is easy to see for a lot of people. And I think he probably looked at that, and I think he, like you say, he's just committed to this event and hoping he can roll that over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see right now because I believe they changed the cutoff. Let's see. They don't have that cut line there, but he was like the 150th golfer on the priority list, and the red line was above his, like 2 or 3 above his name, which felt really odd to me because the best player from the Corn Ferry Tour last year shouldn't be missing on the Players Championship, and this feels very similar to me in that manner. So I'm hoping to get in the fields. Either way, a lot of motivation, shown life at this course. Really has an opportunity to take advantage. Regardless of that, I liked him a lot at 45-1, but I also liked Marcel Schneider too. I just couldn't pull the trigger. I know you're back on him. Tell me why and sell me.
Yeah, just quickly, I think he's in the BMW PGA. It looks like he's in category 13, winner of 3 Challenge Tour tournaments in 2021.
But they don't have the red line anymore. And right now there is like 220 golfers on that entire page.
Right.
So either way.
Maybe they're rejigging it. Maybe they realise they've made a mistake. Who knows?
Hopefully.
Let's go to Marcel Schneider. Yep. So I think he's just one of those guys that's looked capable of breaking through all season long, really. Like, he's had lulls here and there, but he's had multiple opportunities to do that, right? And I think the best run of form came from the Sadal Open to the European Open, where he finished 7th, 4th, and 5th. Then he went through a bit of a lull either side. Like, there's no getting away from that. But he was 20th at the International Open, or he had top 20s at the International Open and the Irish Open. And he's now posted back-to-back 7th place finishes as well. Look at it, the fact 2nd and 3rd in tees green the past 2 weeks, and he's only ranked 18th and 56th in approach, which did put me off a little bit. But again, coming back to my earlier point where I think the short game could help and things like that. Like, I looked at that Austrian Open sort of reference I made earlier, and his best ever finished was this level was 2nd there in 2020, coming back from COVID. So add in the fact that he won twice last year on Challenge Tour, which had to his 2018 Swiss Challenge win. It feels like he is going to sort of break through. I never, like you say, like I say normally, I don't like to deal indefinite, so I'd say he's going to definitely win on the DP World Tour, but it feels like he's got the talent to, and it doesn't look like he's missing anything too much. So I think this could be a good course for him.
Yeah, I mean, just excellent play. I mean, and he's strung together. This is the 2nd time in a row he's kind of built this, run up. I mean, 3 top 10s in a row earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
So I think just overall for Schneider, he just makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it happened in bigger events too, from a field strength earlier in the year. So he's definitely got it in him.
I think that's what I like. I like those people go on those 2 or 3 event stretches and then they look like they can win. Like, I know you'd probably rather have someone that finishes inside the top 20 every week and then flashes with top 5s and wins, but they're not realistically people that you get all the time. And if they are, they're playing the PGA Tour, right? So
and they're not 50-1.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that, there's still a little bit of value on him. I still think he's capable of getting himself up with the Helligkildes and people like that. They've both got a lot of upside, I would say.
Yep, absolutely. So the next golfer we're going to be selecting is somebody we're having a little problem again with Tom. The numbers are drifting a little bit deeper. He's going to courses that he's played well on, and I don't know how I would sum up last week for him because there were some good flashes. was definitely disappointed to wake up on Saturday morning when Guido was like 4 over through 5 holes. Like after he was sitting top 20, and I mean, we saw Rosner basically put himself, in a position he didn't think he had a chance at getting into contention, and then plays an amazing 54-hole stretch. So, there's a lot of opportunity to come from behind on the DP World Tour, and Guido unfortunately couldn't do that. But I mean, we're just going back to a course where 33rd and 2nd. This was, when he was 33rd, that was 2019 for him, where, I mean, a good stretch run. I mean, I think he was like 125 to 1. He had made all his cuts in a row. So just a solid overall performance. Closed with a 67 there. And then, like you said, last year, when we talked about Guido, he never really sniffed burn, but he had shot the best round of, I think, the tournament with a 63 on that Sunday. And that led into, what he did at Torrey. I just think there's just enough in that number. I mean, he's still 66 to 1. And if he's starting to make cuts and show some life again, I don't have a problem adding back to that weekly into him. If he's going to be sub 50s, sub 40s, where he gets in some of those weaker fields, well, we're probably going to get a little bit of a stretch here of Guido in some bigger field events fighting for a card. I mean, that's the wildest thing still going on. If we look at Guido's updated ranking, right now he is 135th on the DP World Tour ranking. So he needs points, absolutely needs points to continue to get a card and not go back to Q school. So 66 is for Guido. He can beat anybody in the world. I still believe that. So I'm excited for him to come back.
Is he definitely in Wentworth?
Yeah, yes, because he was so high on the priority rankings last year. And that is still the number one indicator. They don't have a reshuffle. They don't have anything. Yeah, so he can win here and then he can win at Wentworth.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like, I think that's something that, I think once he gets his confidence, like, he's definitely bubbling into something, isn't he? Right, like he was 20th at the midway stage last week. He shot a 66 to bounce back from the 72 on Saturday. And, when I look at 72 as a worst score of the week, like you're not in a bad place, right? That's just a few putts dropping. That's a one missed tee ball or whatever. It can definitely be, eradicated. So if he has another good week here on a course that we suspect should suit, then he can go to Wentworth and put in a pretty good performance. I'm pretty confident of that. So a couple of big weeks for him.
Yeah, I think too. I have the clear bias. You don't have the bias, but you like to play along with me and the Guido takes. But when I see our peers starting to get on him, it does, like, to your point, something bubbling when we started to catch the eyes of other sharp golf bettors. I think that's definitely intriguing to me. And yeah, next week I always like Guido on kind of that tree line setup that you can get him at. So
and I
excited for that.
Like, yes, you've got a bias in that, but like this, it's not a bias about a guy that can't win, right? Like, we know the winning upside of Guido Migliozzi, and we know, like, yes, you've got that attachment to him because he was there at the start of the story and all that sort of stuff, but like, it doesn't come from nowhere. Like, there's substance to it, and now he's actually showing that form. Like, when he was missing cut after cut after cut, it gets quite hard to kind of support your views, but when he's back doing what he's doing, and I always like if he's been inside the top 20 for a couple of rounds of a week or whatever, like, he's doing something right. And yes, okay, he might be not fully all the way back yet, and maybe we're taking a price that is based on his name as opposed to maybe the form that he's in at the moment in general, but that's fine. Like, sometimes you have to do it on a golfer like him, and he'll very quickly half in price if he gets the top 10 this week. So maybe not for Wentworth, obviously, with the stack field, but later on in these sort of events.
Yeah, and we see, if we go back to DraftKings pricing, Helligkilde is 8,400 this week. So priced up, I think, in a good range, but you can get all the way down to 7,900 for Schneider, 7,800 for Guido. I didn't have as much betting interest in some of the guys, but I think John Catlin has showed some flashes. I think we got to kind of have some higher price golfers, to your point, in Harding, Lotharable, or Lorthable, 9,200, 8,900. I'm okay staying away at those prices. Armitage, things looks a little pricey for me at 8,700, but definitely I'm intrigued at Catlin at 8,500. And Kutsia carried over what he was doing on the Sunshine Tour. Not enough for me to bet, but I think $8K isn't a terrible price either there for him.
So like you mentioned,
you've peeked in there at all.
John Catlin, and he won that Austrian Golf Open last year, right? So there is anything in that. I mean, again, I've purposely steered away from these correlation things a lot recently because I think I got too tangled up in them, and I think this has freed me up. But this one's, if you go and read Steve's kind of preview from last year, he did point out a couple of crossover people. I should have them somewhere in front of me. But as many as 3 players, so Mikael Lundberg, Bernd Wiesberg, and Mark Warren have all won at both venues. And Wiesberger, maybe you'd say he's just a very good golfer, but like Mark Warren and Mikael Lundberg, they're people that tend to play well at the same sort of places every time, and when you do, you kind of take notice. And Jose Manuel Lara was another one that has played. He'd won the first session of the Austrian Open at Diamond Country Club and finished 4th on the Challenge Tour in an event here. So, there's definitely some crossover. And if that, my worry with Catlin is the scoring is going to get away from him, and I don't think he'll win. But at the price at 8,500, and you look at, we'll go into an Armitage in a minute because obviously there's some interest for me in terms of betting. But Ollison in between those two guys at 8,600, I think could be a good DraftKings play, and I think Paul Waring at 8,100 as well. Yeah,
Paul Waring's definitely continued to show life. I guess because what odds do you have Armitage at? Because I just don't know. He kind of sometimes can fall in that category to me of, I guess he did get over the line 54-hole event, but very as consistent as it gets from an iron perspective. So I'd interest there. He just got really priced up on DraftKings. What is his odds?
He's 45 to 1 here.
Okay, so I guess I skipped over him when I went to Guido. I got too excited. But tell me more about Armitage and why. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Well, the thing with me with Armitage is there always seems to be a 2 in front of his pricing, and I always find it he's always a kind of long running joke on the loss of words that he's kind of 28 to 1 and doesn't move, or he's 33 to 1 doesn't move, and it's like, well, I don't really know kind of what he's done with that. I guess it's model based from the fact that he hits the ball so well for such strong periods of time, right? But to your point you just made there, but once he starts getting out to this kind of 45 to 1 and 50 to 1 range, I'm then buying into that talent. It then feels like what we were doing with Richard Mansell, where we're seeing a ball strike and we want to try and take advantage of it. He's got exactly the same problems as Mansell, right? Like there's no getting away from it. He had this, I kind of put him in the same category as Andrew Johnston. They had this thing where they were really, really popular for reasons outside of golf. Like they had this kind of humor, they had this likability that us English and British fans really, really bought into, right? And I found it dangerous because I felt like, okay, they're going to buy into their own hype and they're going to struggle. And I think that did happen with Andrew Johnston, unfortunately, and he's had some injuries as well. And I think that could have happened to Armitage, but he seems to be staying on track in terms of ball striking. So why do I like him here? He's played 3 times. His last visit in 2020, he finished 8th. He posted a pair of 66s after a 70-69 start. And then in 2018, I think he was on the Challenge Tour event, but he was 7th after round 1 and 2nd after round 2 and just had a poor weekend. So that can happen, obviously. His putter is questionable at times, but his ball striking is consistent. So if he's in form on a course that should suit, he was 4th at that Austrian Open last year as well. So he's got the clear ability to take advantage of this event. So just the increase on the price, like it felt like he's actually got to an appealing price to me for once. If he does what he does and goes to an 18th, 19th place finish and nothing better, then I'll just jump off again. It's not an issue.
Yeah. If you look at kind of the last 3 months, he is the only golfer who is a regular European Tour, GP World Tour player who has made every single cut. Like, I guess some of the top guys, their missed cuts were in either co-sanctioned or I guess a major championship, which is a big deal, But, I mean, he hasn't missed a cut in a good amount of time and probably warranted the price he's at. Just felt a little high on that perspective, but I get it. You're right, as the longest odds we have seen him in quite some time.
I think again, it's kind of it's an each way versus win only thing. So I've seen a couple of videos recently where it's not necessarily ours, but a couple of people have been asking each way stuff. So when I talk about that, if people don't know this, it's like playing the top 5. You guys, we get the win part and the top 5 part, and it's 1/5 of the odds or a quarter of the odds depending on where you're doing it, and we kind of get 8 places. So for someone like Marcus Armitage, who could finish inside the top 6 or 7 and not threaten to win, we're still getting a kind of 9 to 1 payout on him. So that just to clarify to some people that might not understand that language. But so I think that's why he's always priced why he is, because people, sports books are worried that he can just place and people can take that price.
For sure. Makes a lot of sense there. We got one more selection that is sub triple digits here, and it's probably my favorite pick of the week from my end. I am very excited about Nicholas Norgard-Mahler this week. When I think of this course, and I think of the run in which happened, and why I think it matters from a Danish, or we've seen, Denmark golfers play it well. Like, he was that example that I think of. Actually, him and we don't have him in the field this week, but John Axelson were the 2 that really, really showed up last year and had a run at the same. I mean, Norgard Muller was in the thick of it last year, coming off, he was triple digits on basically a challenge tour. He started Nordic Golf League, then Challenge Tour, and was playing well. Then he builds it up here. He had won at this golf course. He finished second at this golf course in his last 2 Nordic Golf League events, and he comes out and finishes 8th on the European Tour at the time in this event. And why I like him even more is last week, if you looked at the final 54 holes of the event, Rosner was the number 1 golfer, 209 strokes. Nicholas Norgard Muller was the second golfer with 210 strokes over the final 54 events. And the thing, if you look at him, he ended up finishing 29th last week. He opened up with a 75. That was the worst score by 3 strokes of any golfer who finished his spot or better in any round that they had. So he was just absolutely pitiful. But he shows up Friday, shoots the round of the day. I believe it was a 61 on Friday with really, really good irons. We never have to question how this guy's going to be off the tee. We know he's one of the best golfers on the DP World Tour off the tee, but his irons flashed on Friday and Sunday. He came back with another really good round on Sunday. So I think a couple rounds like that, a decent outright number. I mean, he was 125 to 1 last year and wasn't a European Tour player, wasn't DP World Tour player.
No.
Now he's got a full-time season here. Numbers not even that much different. 70 to 125 doesn't feel a huge change for him. Coming off one of his better weeks, he had missed a lot of cuts. We've seen a couple top 10s out of him this year. I think he's got high upside, especially getting back to a course that he's so familiar with.
So my only concern with him, and it depends whether you're price sensitive or not, is it felt like if this was just called Made in England or whatever, and it was the same course, same setup, but it wasn't in Denmark, then I think he'd have probably been his normal 125 to 1. So it depends how you feel about that, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that, like he said, he finished 8th here last year. He shot the second round 61, which it kind of not seen until late on today, that like a 61 and a 66, and to finish inside the top 30 means you've had to come back from a really poor round, but 2, that you're in good condition and going back to a course that suits him. Like I said, I think it's an easier course. I think it's one that I think he strikes me as the type that can just get on those runs of birdies and eagles that you need here. So I think he can convert with a short stick. Very, very volatile. He's shown that in a 1 week space, right? 75, 61 over 2 rounds. So that kind of sums up his career so far. But I think that, again, huge upside and probably the best place for him now until the end of the season. So that's, if you're going to bet him, it's probably here.
Yep. He was the first one that I went checking for this morning. I'm going to pick up our pace a little bit as we kind of close out. Other golfers kind of in the 7K. So he is 7,400. We saw, if a quick run through, again, Guido was 78. Eduardo Molinari popped for the first time in a while, $7,600. Took a double take there. I think Gavin Green is definitely in play once again. He is just $7,500. Kind of getting into a consistent stretch. Our friend Jens Dantorp is back. He's just $7,500 this week. Kawamura is somebody who definitely has interest after playing well last week, $7,400. Those kind of all feel decently safe. I know you wanted to at least mention, I believe there was 2, let's see. I guess if we want to talk about Challenge Tour, we're talking about Dantorp there, talk about the best Challenge Tour player in this field this week.
Yeah, so Christian Kroh Johansson is someone that's been playing. He's a guy, I know his agent, so I was always looking out for his results, and it's been really impressive. And he looks good. I think I didn't get to him betting wise because the number wasn't what I hoped it would be. I think we were paying a recent Challenge Tour tax on them, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, he's just been brilliant on the Challenge Tour, and if that converts over to here, then great. He's played here a couple of times, so he knows the golf course. I don't know quite what he's going to do, which is why I kind of left him out betting wise. But I do think he's potentially a safe ad in the sense that you can kind of expect him to get through the cut. But my favorite,
I think the price is a steal. Like on DraftKings, for sure. We love to bet these guys. I love to bet these guys.
Yeah.
I have a problem with this, and even at 100 to 1, it wasn't worth it. I don't feel that much different than. Jared, who I don't even remember the last name of the guy we bet, who's side by side last week we bet him at 400 to 1.
Yeah.
Jeremy
Freiberg.
Freiberghaus. Yeah. So it's not that much difference. This guy's a quarter of 25% of that number.
And we didn't even get the 100 to 1 over here. He was like 66. Like,
yeah,
he just wasn't going to happen. And that's not to take anything away from him, like playing on DraftKings. So I think the favorite for me in here, you mentioned Karamora. I think is great. Now he's showing life. Then just go with him. But Nacho Avila is 16th and 28th in tees per in his last two, 14th and 29th in approach, 19th on his golf course before he was 6th at the halfway stage. 12th and 9th last two starts, and when he was 34th at the Kazoo Classic 4 starts, goes 9th at the halfway stage as well. So there's something about Nacho Avila at the moment that suggests that he's kind of in the form that he needs to be to contend, and he's right down here at 7,500. So I think him next to Karamora and Christian Kroh Johansson there are really good little options. And I do think Julian Gurrier as well could be an interesting one in this price range.
Yeah, Gurrier continues to make a kind of appearances on top of leaderboards.
He's got a 14th and 15th place finishes in this event.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's intriguing. Okay, so I have two more selections. We're getting one $6,700 for the first one, and 200 to 1, I believe, is the longest number. Let's see if that's still available. Yep, 200 to 1 here in the States. Alejandro Canizares. So Alejandro, and this is the biggest argument, I guess, I think I have for golfers off the tee, at least giving a cushion. Like, a golfer doesn't have to excel this week off the tee to compete here, or you can find a way. So Alejandro Canizares has to be one of the worst off the tee players on the DP World Tour. Yeah. He has been positive. So Data Golf does their adjustments, for field strengths, even, in the strokes gain categories. He's been positive to the field based on their adjustments 3 times in the last 3 years. And one of them is here at the Maiden Denmark, where he in 2019 finished T9th, and he had gained strokes gained. It was because he was relatively accurate. He still lost 10 strokes to the field on distance, but he was better with his accuracy, and then he was really good with his irons, and he putt well. So the last 2 weeks, we see him trending in irons. We see T47 at the Czech Masters. And then we see a T7 last week in Omega. And I think even in Omega last week, you could still figure out a way with distance to have it to your advantage. It's not like there were like big hitters that were up there, but, losing 20 yards to the field on distance, like he does, it's just not all that great. But his accuracy was a little bit better. And I just think there's enough there. And then what really caught my eye is when Ben Coley had tweeted how Canizares kind of predicted that his game was getting into the right step. He was very happy the way he played in the Czech Masters and kind of had built up to what he said at the Omega. And he goes, he was spot on about it. So if we're going to a course where I believe that you can still be okay off the tee, not having a tip-top game, and he showed that here before with his finish, and then his irons are trending like they are right now, and he is super confident about how he's playing. He's very vocal about it, so you get to hear kind of the way he feels about his game, and then you still get 200 to 1 on that. That to me was enough to get into Alejandro. Again, $6,700 as well on DraftKings. I definitely like him this week.
Prime candidate, I think, for first round leader.
That's a good thought.
62-63 last week, and opened up with a 66 here when he was 9th in 2019 and led after day one. So, I know that you can't just rely on previous form for first round leader. I know that more than anyone, despite the fact I keep trying to sort of roll it out, but it's not the most predictable thing. But if you can get a first round leader market out there somewhere, I think he'll be good for that. And I think it's a good price for him. In general, I was surprised that he was 200 to 1 really when I sort of first saw him, because he had that 9th place finish, and doesn't seem to be a reaction to the fact that he's posted a top 10 in his last week and has a top 10 in the course. Like, that doesn't seem to have kind of been reacted to. So people have obviously given up on him. But again, I think it's model based. Like, he's terrible off the tee, so let's just leave him out and hang a price in him. And sometimes that doesn't work in their favour.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess we cracked into the 6Ks there. One more golfer I know you wanted to mention. I think you're on him outright too. Yeah. So 7K flat for Joaquin B. Hansen, our our dual hit winner that we had last year. We have a soft spot for Joaquin B. So hit us why.
So every week so far on the Lost for Words, probably, well, I guess for like 3 months, it's been like, what the hell's happened to Joaquin B. Hansen? He's going out to 200-1, 300-1. He's one of the better players in the field, and he's just been striking the ball poorly, right? So I think the fact that he was 6th in approach and 31st in Tee to Green last week, and now returns to the course that he's won on, albeit on the Challenge Tour, I like it. So he's in his other 5 starts, he's been like poor here, but when he finished 41st, he was 7th after round 1, 13th after round 2. Definitely boom or bust, but I just think take the 125 to 1 or whatever it is, 100 to 1 on him, and just hope that he kind of puts in a good performance after last week.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely a better bet than he is DraftKings. I think he's too volatile for DraftKings.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, down here you're guessing with a lot. Yeah. And I'm definitely going to take one more speculative jab here as we kind of go down the board. It actually is a little bit more of a price play. We have a good amount of, again, they represent well having the different Danes tee it up. I mean, if you go kind of down the board, Oliver Hundable gets to play this week, but he is priced down kind of into the 100 range. Again, Norgard Moller teeing it up. You have, of course, Bjerregaard. You have Jeff Anderson playing in there. Sebastian Friedrichsen showing up here. You have Lassie Jensen, an old name for those who kind of had played in the past. But the one golfer that stood out to me the most when we kind of look at kind of the golfers who got these invitations, you can kind of see a world ranking standpoint for him, and you can also see some decent success this year. And he's not a young gun, but Nicolai Tinning is the one that I wanted to discuss for the week. Nicolai Tinning is available as long as 750 to 1 here in the States, which to me, like, this is somewhat of the Moeller of last year, or even the Axelson of last year. When I look at this, Nicolai Tinning, you look at his year on the Nordic Golf League, he's 3rd in overall rankings, I guess on the points list. He has a win to his name. He has a 2nd place. He has a 4th place in his last 3 Nordic Golf League events. He has 20th, 12th, and 12th. And again, those are smaller field events. Those probably aren't that strong of finishes. He gets his first Challenge Tour start a few weeks ago, misses the cut. But what really intrigues me is he steps up last week in his 2nd Challenge Tour start of the season and finishes 2nd. It was a 54-hole event there. He lost by 3. He had 2 doubles on the opening day. He had a back 930 on Saturday, or whatever his 2nd round would have been. Tons of birdies for him. Definitely showed life. He won last year again on the Nordic Golf League. He was very strong. He had a top 10 as well. So in 2 of his last 4 Challenge Tour starts, he has finished inside of the top 10. That's over the last 2 years. These are all the opportunities that he has gotten to compete at the next level. So to get him now an elevated event, I guess, for it, coming off of the best event he has had all season, he has some familiarity at the course. He's played here like 6 or 7 times. He has 1 second place, and that was back in 2017. Here, last couple times wasn't that great, but he didn't come in with the same type of form as he did there. All of these guys have experience at this course. Very familiar to them. But just 750 to 1 on him, when is he all that different than some of these other golfers that end up getting priced quite a bit lower? To me, no. I think that's definitely worth a shot. We're going to get a good top 10. We're going to get a good top 20 on him. On DraftKings this week, he'd probably be the lowest golfer I would play, and that is $6,100 for him. But I think he's just very speculative and has shown some flashes when he's gotten the opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those ones, you know, if you do need to go down there because you're taking a couple of guys from the top, then great. I think Bobby Bayer at 6,200 is an interesting one as well. Just, I know you like him, keeps hitting the ball well, keeps posting these kind of rounds of 65, 64. And I think for some reason I've got this in my head that Nikolai von Dollinghausen will do something here, despite the fact that he's had some terrible run and missed cuts. But he's played well in Austria before in that course. So I think there's a couple of names there that are worth putting into your kind of 6K lineup.
Yeah. Absolutely. So excited again. Big prizes, 20K to first place for us this week, you know, and especially going into next week too with Wentworth. Let's get some big old prizes. Please feel free, rate, review, subscribe. It goes a long way to support us on the YouTube channel, as well as you can find us at any of your audio platforms. Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the mix on Mayo Media Network. Please rate, review, subscribe. We'd love 5 stars. We appreciate the feedback each and every week. Tom, can you review your betting card here as we close out?
I can, yeah. So Marcus Armitage for me at kind of 40, 45 to 1. Marcel Schneider and Marcus Helligkilde at the kind of 45, 50 to 1 mark. I think it's a really good range for that. And JB Hansen is 100 to 1 over here as well. He's definitely a more volatile play, but that's where I'm going this week.
Awesome. I have Eddie Pepperell, 33 to 1. Marcus Helligkilde, 45 to 1. Guido Migliazzi at 66 to 1. Nicholas Norgard Mahler, 70 to 1. Alejandro Canizares, 200 to 1. Nikolai Tinning, 751. We deserve a 751 hit.
We do.
Tom?
That's
we
it's not happened all year.
Deserve it.
Get it on Tinning, all in one. Get all our stuff back. All those horrible losses, and then we can start afresh again next year.
Yep, it was all worth it. Well, I appreciate you, Tom. Thank you so much, and best of luck, everybody, this week.